We've sprinted around Mercury Isles, we've time trialled around Watopia, not once, but twice, and we've scaled the highest heights of New York and London, and it all comes down to this. A scratch race on Tair Dringfa Fechan, which is Welsh for who on earth voted for this ridiculously hard course? But seriously, it is a cracking course, and I've got a cracking recon lined up for you. I've done the points, both for the race and for final league positions. I've got a power-up guide, when you get them and when you should use them. I've got a recon ride from Miguel Steak and Chains, who has done the Lord's work for me. Thank you, Miguel. That was utterly awesome. And this is the inside line. The points for a scratch race are as per every race up until now, and I'm not going through them again. I've already done it like 4 times. But to determine the final league positions, that will be by totaling the total league points across the season, all 6 races, and then if those are still equal, then it's based on finishing points. If those are still equal, it's based on FAL points, and if those are still equal, it's based on FTS points. And if it's still equal after that, then you need to send off the sweat that you've accumulated through the races, which you should have been keeping as per Chapter 4, Rule 3, Subsection B of the extensive WTRL rule set. I've kept mine. It's 1.2 litres of sweat, and WTRL will then determine by chemical analysis which team's sweat is most pungent, and the most pungent shall be the winner. Don't shoot me, I'm just the messenger. The route is an absolute belter, designed by Brian Culliford from CLS, so well done you. And Tair Dringfa Fechan means 3 little hills, apparently, and they are that, the first of which is the Rev KOM. So we start out in the downtown Watopia pens, head out through the tunnel towards the Rev KOM, and then we do the Rev KOM, the really steep bit at the start, and then thankfully head out down the rollers and towards Hilly KOM, where we do the hard bit of the Hilly forward, so round the corner, up a bit, down a bit, and then thankfully it looks as though you're going to head back down to Watopia downtown and everything will be good and the race will be over. But no, there's a little road off that I never knew of that leads you up towards the Hilly reverse, and you go up that really steep bit where there's another right hand corner to take you to the Hilly KOM reverse banner, and then we head out down and off through the volcano and then up towards Titan's Grove, and then eventually up Titan's Grove reverse KOM, where the race will finish. If people are asking you for ideas for Christmas gifts, why not ask for a voucher from Level Velo? Then you can get yourself down there in the new year, levelvelo.cc, and order yourself some great kit. They do custom designs and are specialists in indoor clothing. levelvelo.cc, the link is in the description. I've done, frankly, a ridiculous amount of detail on where you get your power-ups and when you should use them. You get your first one at the JW Bridge, that's at 14.4 kilometers, and you'll get a feather, which I suggest you use on the Hilly reverse section at 16.1. Then you'll get an anvil power-up at the KOM, and that'll be at 16.5 kilometers, and I suggest you use that on the Hilly descent. In fact, I insist you use that on the Hilly descent at about 18.6 kilometers. Then at the volcano banner, you'll get a truck. Doesn't really matter where you use that, it's not much use, but the main thing is that you do use it because you'll get your final power up at the downtown banner, not too far away, at 25.3, and that is very useful. It'll be the feather power up, which I suggest you use as late as possible, really, at the finish, if at all you can, at 31.9 kilometers. My bike recommendation is the Tron, pink Tron if you can, and if you haven't got the Tron, then a all-rounder such as the Pinarello Dogma F 20 24 with the disc wheels. I felt very sorry for you all having to do a course that you've never done before, so I've wrote the most ridiculously detailed recon notes for you, which are available to download from my Google Drive, link in the description down below. Off we go! Final race of the season, and we're heading out towards the epic KOM via the tunnels. I wouldn't imagine many people will be pushing here. I once did a race where we headed up to the full epic climb and we got along these tunnels and nobody wanted to be on the front. We were just trundling along at 20 kilometers per hour and just literally nobody wanted to get to the front at all. I'd imagine it'd be similar in a lot of your races, so a nice genteel start. Have a chat with your new foes. We do have this ramp out of the tunnel. It's about 6%, fairly consistent, so probably be a bit of a push there, but take whatever rest you can going into the epic, and then when we come to this epic climb, it's fairly consistent between 5 and 8%, but a lot at 7%, and then dips down a little, back up again, but fairly consistent until you hit this corner where there's bits up to 10%, 9-10% more, and then eventually eases off to around 3% before this first pylon, and then the bridge of dying watts. There is some draft to be had, but it's also very easy to lose the wheel unless you can keep yourself engaged for the full distance of the bridge. If you do drop off a little bit here, it's not too much of a disaster because this is a significant bump at this last pylon, and then that's the peak of that little climb. You come into these rollers, and this is the point, if you haven't already been, to start thinking as a team. Use the rollers to either close gaps or allow yourself to sit on and let your teammate close gaps to you. If you push on the ups and on that gravel terrain, then it is very good for closing gaps down. And if you're on this bridge, it's a -3%. Take little turns and then super tuck down here. If you don't get the super tuck, don't try and sprint on, just relax. You might fall back to get in some draft where you can get some super tuck and then catch the lone rider at the bottom on this tougher terrain. And now we're approaching the hairpins, which again, a lot of time can be gained or lost indeed if nobody pushes. So if you're with a group and you've got teammates in particular, then work together to increase the gap if that'll give you a tactical advantage. But if there's an advantage to be gained in your teammates catching from behind, then by all means just sit on. And if there's people just pushing, then just sit on them nevertheless. Bit of a bump there where you can increase group speed and take a bit of a rest here as we head out towards the JW bridge, where you'll pick up your first power up of the day, which will be a feather, which is quite useful considering what's coming up. So we head out right on this new bit of road and then head towards the Hilly KOM forward, but we're not going to do all of it. Rather strange goings on. Lots of draft to be had here normally. If you're in a group, just relax, sit in the draft, don't watch the brakes going off the front, and here's where things will start to push. If you're going to use your feather on this first bit, that's the place to use it, just a bit before this turn, as it really spikes up in gradient on the turn. Push hard all the way through here. You will get some respite here, and then we take the turn off here, and then, oh man, I just didn't know this was possible. Here we join the Hilly KOM reverse, and we'd have to do the hard bit of that. It feels like you're doing the hard bits of both sides of a Hilly KOM. Doesn't seem fair, really. Use your feather at the bottom of that hill if you've retained it, if you possibly can. Takes you up the hard bit, and then collect your next power up, which will be an anvil here. Don't be tempted to use it here. I know it must be tempting if there's a small gap, but instead use these small ascents to try and make up ground, because the anvil will be devastating later on. Use the little bumps to make up ground, or even to grow gaps to those behind you. This is a significant bump. Try and make up the ground there rather than using your anvil, and take little rests here. on the slight descent. Now the anvil lasts 15 seconds. Use it about here when the gradient gets really sharp, and you'll make up enormous amounts of ground. And then there's some fairly bumpy-ish terrain through the villas, down the dirty suppressor, along the flat bit to the volcano, where you're greeted by a 3 to 5% ramp taking you into the volcano itself, into the heart of the volcano, and then you'll collect a penultimate power-up, which is a draft fan, which is about as much use as a chocolate lava protector. Whatever you do, use that truck power-up though, because there's one more to come, which you'll gain once you go back into downtown Watopia, and here you'll gain a feather, which is what you really want for the finish. And then we head out to Titan's Grove along this slightly uppish road. I have seen people escape from a group here and never to be seen again. People will be waiting for the final KOM, so it might be a good place to push. And once we get into Titan's Grove, then if you're in a group, then even if you aren't actually, if you're solo, increase your efforts on these uppy bits, drop it back down on the drops, get into a rhythm. Power on and off. Power on, move forward in the group as you're pushing up. There's some really sustained ones here. If you want to really try the opponents, then that's the place to do it on the bigger bumps, but give yourself rest on these little descents. I think this is the final really big bump. Little drop down there though, where people will catch back. Really testing this after all these little climbs that you've done. Climbing up to the top of the approach, and then once you're over these bits, then there's a long descent into the bottom of the KOM proper. And at that point, you really want to be working on positioning yourself at the back of the group, because the start of the KOM, this 3 to 5% section, you do really get some draft. It's the 6% mark where it tends to go to nothing. And just hold your nerve, hold in the draft for as long as you can, steel yourself, push, 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 but then wait a minute, and then when the finish line comes into sight, use your feather, give it every last drop of energy, summon all your spirit, all your willpower in the last 250 meters of this season. Push hard, just like Miguel. The end is in sight, so that you know that you've given it your all throughout this season for your team. The very best of luck to you on this wonderful course, Tair Dringfa Fechan. Oh, I wish I was Welsh. What a lovely set of words they have. And I wish you a very Merry Christmas, and I will see you in the new year.